with all the night dreamers talking to you at night. Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's Talk Show Radio, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Show Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair, because Gary's talking to you at night.
Well, it's September 18th. Glad to have all of you tuning in here tonight. Boy, on Night Dreams Talk Radio, we just keep growing by the thousands each day. Hi, I'm Gary Anderson. I'm the host of Night Dreams Talk Radio, brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. You know, the world has many wonderful and strange things, and we keep discovering new ones each day. Well, tonight we have Douglas Preston on. We're going to be talking about the lost Maya civilization. What happened to them? Where did they go? What caused them to disappear? Well, we're going to find that all out tonight. Right now, here's Guy Ticker with the news. So stay tuned.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Fear of aliens invading Earth in 2027. In an interview, a former CIA agent says people in the U.S. and elsewhere in the world are, quote, being prepared to the reality that there is something, before adding that their presence is here. Another agent commented, quote, I always knew they'd be coming for us. Why isn't the government preparing for it? We need answers. Yet another former CIA agent who alleges alien encounters claims, quote, they're showing up. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, the home of Night Dreams Talk Radio, with Gary Anderson, syndicated worldwide. Paranormal Talk Radio, like you remember.
And it is now the 18th of September. Boy, the time, JC, is going by so fast. You know, it seems just like it was like June, and now we're in September, and the weather is totally changed. The trees are losing all the leaves. It's getting cold. It's rainy down here at the compound, and you're going to go in that in about a week or so, too, your direction.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, but yeah, we're mid-80s still. It's actually like August here instead of September.
Yeah. Well, how about your tomato plants? Did you plant any of them this year?
Yeah, and guess what? They got frosted out and died about 5 days ago, and 2 years ago I had them till November 14th.
Yeah, were you giving them out on Halloween wrapped up in real nice gold foil?
Yeah, they came back.
Yeah, they came back against your house, didn't it?
Yeah, like fastballs. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, we talked, a lot about snakes and bears on the show. Breaking in people's houses, getting into their freezers, refrigerators, cupboards, and stealing beer and getting drunk in people's garages, passed out in their kitchens. Well, now we have another sad story today about a 12-year-old boy who saved his father's life when a black bear attacked his father, had him on the ground, and was ripping his face off. The young boy, Owen, shot the bear and killed it.
Wow, that's something you can't unsee too. Thank God he was there to save his father. That's horrible to have to go through that. And listen, I've seen bears bigger than 200 pounds. Lucky it wasn't any bigger, because a lot of these bears take more than a lot of shots to kill sometimes.
Well, he was lucky, but again, it was on the news. They showed the guy I mean, he's going to be marked for life. But, that's better than the other being dead. Again, this is the time of year. If you're going out in the woods, looking for any cryptics or whatever, this is the time of year bears are now eating anything they can before they go, and hibernate for the winter.
Yeah, there's two dangerous times, right before they go in and right when they come out, because they're loading up on all the calories going in and coming out.
Yeah, you don't have any bears where you're at, do you?
No, well,
you do at the nudist camp down the block, but I mean,
besides that, no, there's not supposed to be, but every once in a while there'll be a rare sighting of a bear, but they're not. It's rare. Yeah.
I haven't seen a bear. I've seen one bear in the last year. Other than that, it was like 20 years because, where I'm at, originally down at our mini farm, we were the only house. And, there was then down the street, about a quarter of a mile, there was another one. Now everybody sold their property for the years. All the cedar trees have been logged out. I'm the only one with trees left basically around here. And, when I moved here, there was a lot of deer. There was a lot of bear and all that, and they're all gone.
They all went bye. Plus, with all the building, it's encroaching on their territory. So it's kind of like they're coming in on us, and we're expanding into their homeland too.
Remember I was talking about the crane that came into our fish pond and emptied it?
I was just thinking about that. Yeah, there's your new predator.
Oh, no. We got another one. I have a bunch. I like birds. So, and I take photography, I do picture taking. So in our back of our, mini farm, I got an area set up with a whole bunch of things, bird feeders and all this stuff. And, well, we got another bird. It's called an owl, and it loves other birds, if you know what I'm talking about.
They do, and they fly silently. You don't even know they're there until they're right on you.
Yeah, they eat them.
Yeah, they'd eat them goldfish you got in there, too.
Ah, what goldfish?
Yeah, well, by proxy, through the other bird, I guess. Jeez.
Well, last night, the reason why I realized it, and I asked my son, I said, do we have an owl? Oh, yeah, we have an owl. I took pictures with your camera, remember? And I said, no, I don't remember you telling me about it. But I thought about 2 o'clock in the morning, my wife is snoring really strange. Like maybe I got to call the paramedics. It wasn't her snoring. It was that owl.
Yeah, it was the owl. And yeah, listen, they like little dogs, and you got to watch your pets. So,
yeah.
Cats. Yeah.
Well, let's do this little break, and then let's bring Doug Preston on, and we're going to talk, about how he got into writing, the Maya civilization, and a whole bunch more right here on Night Dreams Talk Radio. So stay tuned.
Time slips. A haunted office building on a haunted street. A haunted coal town. Mysterious black cats. Unexplained light anomalies. UFOs, UAPs in the air and on the ground. Bridges in liminal spaces. Cryptids, shamans, and a werewolf. Disclosure. You don't need a ranch in Utah. All this and more happens in rural southwestern Pennsylvania. Coming soon from Haunted Hills and Hollows 1 and 2 author Kevin Paul, Politics and the Paranormal in Greene County, Pennsylvania. Available this fall on Amazon and at other fine booksellers. Douglas Preston has published 40 books, both fiction and nonfiction, 32 of which have been New York Times bestsellers. He is the creator, with Lincoln Child, of the famed Agent Pendergast series of thrillers. Preston's recent nonfiction book, The Lost City of the Monkey God, was a #1 New York Times bestseller, and a previous nonfiction book, The Monster of Florence, is being made into a limited series by Apple. His latest nonfiction book is The Lost Tomb, which delves into some of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Douglas Preston worked as an editor for the American Museum of Natural History in New York and taught nonfiction writing at Princeton University. He also served as president of the Authors Guild, the nation's oldest and largest association of authors and journalists.
Well, Preston, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm great, Gary. It's great to be on the show.
How old were you when you got involved in writing?
Well, I wrote my first novel when I was 11 with a friend. It was called Animal Valley, and it was about a bunch of animals who talked like human beings and had adventures, and it was really bad. And it's lost now. It's lost to the sands of time.
And how many copies did you publish and send out?
Well, no copies were sold. My friend's mother typed it up, and but unfortunately, all the typed pages went off into the ether, and it no longer exists. Thank God.
You mean your parents didn't even buy a copy from you?
No, they didn't. I don't even think my parents read it, although they were always encouraging me, but not to be a writer. They did not think that writing was a very good profession. They wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor or a hedge fund manager or something like that.
Isn't parents strange? My mom wanted me to be a priest. My dad wanted me to be a lawyer. And I wanted to be the president of the United States. But that didn't happen, so I've been in talk radio all my life.
Well, Gary, you're doing well. Your show is absolutely going to town. It's a fantastic show. So God knows you might be president soon.
Oh, president of the whatever union. Anyway, with you, so you were at that age. When did you write a book that people actually started wanting to look and wanting to have a copy of it?
Well, I worked for the Museum of Natural History, and I was writing a nonfiction column in the magazine. And I got a call from a New York editor. He said, "How would you like to write a book about the museum?" And I said, "I'd love to." So I wrote a book about the Museum of Natural History. And at the end of that, this editor, whose name happened to be Lincoln Child, said to me, "I'd like a tour of the museum at night when it's closed. I want to see all those weird dinosaurs in the dark." So I did that for him since I worked there. At the end of this tour, he turned to me and said, "My God, this is the scariest building in the world. We've got to write a thriller set in this building." And I said, "Link, I don't know how to write a thriller. I've never written a thriller." And he said, "Well, I'm editing a book, a thriller. I think it's going to be quite successful. And I've learned a lot from it. It's called The Silence of the Lambs." And anyway, So that's how Lincoln and I got together and started writing books. And our first book was Relic, which became a movie called The Relic by Paramount Pictures. It was a #1 box office hit. And it was not a bad movie. The book's better, though, I have to tell you.
Oh, books are always better than the movie because movies take shortcuts.
Well, it was funny. When I was watching this movie for the first time, they invited me to the Paramount Studios, limousine, and they put me next to the director. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this movie thinking, man, this is horribly violent. Who wrote this stuff? And then I was like, wait a minute, I wrote that.
Oh, that's a good one. And did you actually think that seriously?
Well, it was a specific scene. Now, if you see The Relic, there's a scene where a person's brain has been ripped out of his skull and is sitting in a men's room at the museum next to the urinal. And here is this brain. I mean, I couldn't believe, I did write that scene, but when you actually see it in reality, it's a different deal than when you're sort of imagining it in your head. And I looked at that and I was like, that is really disgusting. This is horrible. What is the mentality of the person who would dream up something this disgusting? And then I was like, wait a minute, that's me. I wrote that scene. There was a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah, but again, when you were a kid and I was a kid, I don't know how old you are, but I'm going on 73. And when I was little, we didn't even have a TV, but we had a big Philco, floor model, radio. And every Friday and Saturday, my grandmother, my grandfather, and cousins and relatives, I didn't even know who they really were, they'd come over and we listened to radio shows. And where you had to sit there and close your eyes and imagine, what was going on. And you could actually see it. It's the same way when you read a book. If you get into a book, your brain will get and absorb it. And like we were saying before we went on the air, young people nowadays, because of the internet and because of, video games and everything else, I think they have lost that ability. I don't know how you feel, Douglas.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Gary. What you just said is really important. When we were kids, I mean, I'm 68. I'm quite a bit younger than you, I guess, 5 years anyway. But, we were forced to imagine listening to the radio or reading books. We were forced to imagine what was going on. But now kids are fed the images. They're fed everything. It's like a pipeline into their brain with no exercise of those little gray cells. And I don't know. I'm worried about that. I'm just worried. Also, I spent a lot of time outdoors. My mother I'd come home from school, and I don't know about you, Gary, but my mother would say, change into your play clothes and get out of the house. And don't come back till it's dark. So I'd go out and roam the neighborhood with my friends and get into trouble. And, we lived next to a golf course, and I'd go out on the golf course and get yelled at by the golfers and chased off.
Did you steal balls?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I don't feel bad.
I'd steal the balls from the first hole, and then I'd sell them back to the same people at the 18th hole. Oh, that's my brand. Oh, and then one guy was like, hey, wait. That's my name on the ball. Hey, you kids, you stole my ball. And then we dropped the ball and run like hell. But,
I was chased a couple of times doing that because my grandmother, one of my grandmothers, lived for a while next to a golf course, like a fourth a block away. And I'd sneak underneath the fence and do the same thing. Hey, I got some balls. I'd wait till they come out to their cars. I got a good deal, 24 balls for whatever, And I actually had a guy go, wait a minute. These are mine. There's my name on them.
You got to be careful. It's funny. There was a creek right off the first tee, and there was mud in the creek. And if a ball landed there, it would go into the mud, and they'd never find it. So we used to go into that creek, and we'd take off our shoes and our bare feet. We'd walk around in the mud and feel all these balls in the mud and dig them out and then sell them back. And some of them were kind of rotten, but most of them were pretty good. I made a lot of money that way.
Oh, yeah. So you went from that, and that's the thing that, young kids, and I was talking to one of my sons about his grandkids. He lets them play video. They get home from school, they do their homework, and that's video. Playing video games nonstop till they go to bed. When I was a kid, I got home. The first thing my parents said, okay, you can go out. Well, actually, they would say, go out for 2 hours, play, come in, do your homework, and go to bed. They don't do that no more. And that's what I think, again, the imagination is so important. Like I was also telling you, through the years, I've interviewed a lot of people that have wrote books. And I asked them, well, how long did it take you to write this novel? Oh, I did it in a week, 13 days, 2 weeks. And I'm going, I tried writing a book. I actually even had it sold to a publishing house, and I won't go there. But it took me months and months and months. I don't know how anybody could write a book in a week or week and a half that's worth reading. Seriously. Other than in the bathroom, and when you run out of toilet paper, there you got some extra wipes.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I was just talking to a friend of mine who said, oh, I wrote a book. It took me 1 minute. Using ChatGPT. And I was like, yeah, right. ChatGPT, which has stolen all of our books and digested them and are just spewing them back out.
That is really what is really scary to me, is AI. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Through the years, I wrote a lot of ad copy, a lot of news stories for various radio stations. I find myself on that same platform now. Okay, well, hey, do a promo for my show. Boom, there it is. I don't even have to, okay, I'll clean it up a little bit. But, again, that's scary because as it advances more and more, I mean, I really think, like Stargate. They did a thing here a couple months ago. Remember the Stargate series TV?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they did a thing online, Stargate, the audio, not the video thing. It was all AI generated, the whole script.
Well, I'm a George R. R. Martin is a good friend of mine. And, I was talking to him the other day and he was all angry. He said, some joker went out there and got ChatGPT to write the last book in my series, the book that everyone's waiting for, right? And so some guy went out there and got ChatGPT to write the book. And, I mean, that's great. I mean, I'm sure it's no good, it's certainly not any good, obviously, but, that's a little scary.
It's more than scary. Again, it's going to change society. I don't think for the good, because again, the creative side is going to be maybe not for our generation or the generation behind us, but the generations coming up. I'm telling you, it's really going to cause a lot of problems. Now, I kind of want to shift a little bit. The Maya civilization. They just found a year ago in the Amazon, another city. It was undergrown. I mean, what can you tell the listeners about the Maya civilization?
Well, that's fascinating. That was one of the great, magnificent civilizations in the Americas. And when it was originally first discovered by Europeans, they said, "Oh my God, this is like ancient Egypt or some of the great civilizations of the ancient world and in the old world." And what happened here? All these amazing cities, these temples, these huge pyramids, these sculptures, and it was all overgrown in jungle, completely abandoned. And so there's this huge mystery. What happened to these people? Why did they leave? It was like the ruins of ancient Rome, but nobody there. And, that's a very interesting question.
It is. But, like in the Amazon, again, what happened to the civilization? They were so huge. And these cities had, literally thousands of people in them. They had everything from, sewer, water, all this type of stuff. What went wrong?
Well, it's very interesting what went wrong, because there is a parallel to today. And I'm going to draw that parallel, and it's not a happy one. There were two things that the Mayans did that messed up their civilization. The first thing was that they started to ruin their environment. They cut down the trees, they farmed, over-farmed, they sort of caused erosion to occur, but by over-farming and not replenishing the soil, there was rain that would come, there were floods, and it would wash away the topsoil, and without the trees to hold everything in. So they were degrading their environment. And so as their population grew, they were started to be unable to feed everybody. That's the first thing. But the second thing was the structure of Mayan society. And this is something really, I think, parallel to today. What happened was you had a Maya elite. These were the rulers, the rich people, the ones who controlled everything, the priests, the priestly class. And they accrued power, but they decided that they didn't want to do anything productive. They wanted everyone to work for them and just feed them. And they lived in palaces filled with gold. and feathers, which were even more valuable than gold to the Maya. And they became a parasitic class. And as they had more and more children who also became parasitic, it's a little bit, forgive me for saying this, it's a little bit like the Saudi royal family, right? There are like 5,000 of them now, and they're a bunch of parasites. They don't do any work. They live in these palaces. They spend money. They've got oil, and that's where that money is coming from. But in the Mayan society, this parasitic upper class didn't have oil, and it became bigger and bigger. Nobody wanted to work because, of course, that was something that they didn't do because they were the parasitic, they're the rich people. And so you got this parasitic upper class feeding off working class and middle class Mayan people at the same time that the environment was being degraded so that there was less food. And so you had it was like between like a rock and a hard place. A large class of unproductive rich people and a class of increasingly desperate workers who were making less and less for themselves and their families. Now, does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, it does. Like today's society.
You drew that parallel, not me.
I drew it, but it's true. But again, weren't they a warrior race too? They were in a lot of wars.
They were. It was a warrior society, but they managed, in a weird way, they managed their wars by the ball game. The very famous Maya ball game where two warring Mayan cities would come together, and instead of having a war where a bunch of people were killed, they would have a ball game. And it was an extremely violent game. Many people were killed during the game, killed and maimed, taken off the field with broken bones, with their brains bashed out, whatever. And the idea of this game was this very hard rubber ball that was more like a lead ball than anything else, trying to get it through a hoop. And of course, the losers were executed, sacrificed to the gods.
Is that where also they ripped out their hearts while they were standing and living?
Yeah, they did. You've seen those Mayan temples. They're very steep-sided, and they have a little stone hut on the top. Now, the reason why those stairs were so steep was because they would take a sacrificial victim and lay him down on the altar there and stab him in the breastplate, rip open his breastplate, and take out his actual beating heart and hold it up to the god. And then they would throw the body off this little platform, and the pyramid had to be steep enough so the body would tumble all the way to the bottom, where the workers would gather it up. And I know this sounds a little extreme, but in many cases, gather it up, cut it up, and it would be fed. It would become food. It would be cannibalism. Yeah. I mean, it was sacred food. It wasn't like eating chicken, but
no. Yeah, but some people claim that it does taste like chicken. I never tried it myself.
Well, the sailors who in the 18th and 19th century who sometimes were so becalmed they had to eat their people on the ship. I mean, people would die of starvation. They called human beings long pig because apparently human flesh tastes a lot like pig. So pork, long pig is what they called human beings when they had to eat them.
And that is really, but again, to them, it was just like, like if you went into Africa where some of the tribes or headhunters, they would eat their, victims and all that. Again, to them, that was normal.
It's true. And sometimes eating your relatives, your dear beloved deceased, was a religious way of incorporating their spirit into your body, like the Foray of New Guinea. would eat the brains of their, if their mother or father died, they would eat their brains.
Yeah, but they also came down with what I read with diseases from eating the brains too.
Well, exactly. You're absolutely right, Gary. The prion disease called, what was it called? Anyway, it was a horrible disease, but it was transmitted from eating brains. You know what? It was the same as mad cow disease, a very similar disease.
Yeah, it would eat their brain, actually, destroy their brain. And I wouldn't want to be a beautiful girl either in the Maya civilization, because the priests would love you. I'm talking about sacrificing with them.
Well, exactly. The Maya had pipelines of sacrificial victims from the people they'd conquered nearby. Also, the Aztecs did the same thing, and they'd bring these beautiful women, young women, virgins, in to sacrifice to the gods. And in Peru as well, they found in the high mountains in the Andes, they found young girls, 13, 14, 15 years old, who'd been sacrificed, brought up to these 15,000 feet where they've been hit in the head or killed and sacrificed to the gods. And they did some chemical analyses of the sacrificial victims and found that they'd been given hallucinogenic drugs and other drugs in order to maybe lessen the terror of being sacrificed, or maybe as a religious offering to the gods. But these poor, young, beautiful girls were killed and then buried in these tombs with lots of beautiful things. And because of the high altitude and the desert environment, they were perfectly preserved.
Yeah. Now we need to take a break too. But, again, I think the drugs they gave them too, it made them more willing to sacrifice themselves. Again, that's really scary, that a civilization so advanced that actually could, know the stars and know how to do math and figured out the zero of math and all this type of stuff. We're so far advanced, but yet on the other side, we're so far backwards. We'll be back with our guest, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Times, can't you feel it? Is there a reason for it all? Maybe take a ride on this pipe train, hold it in, wait for it, here come the fall. Oh, your mind's been spun into a web, it's a spider gonna catch 'em all. Wheels and deals, a flickering screen, got your card, and you please gotta click 'em all.
Looking for Bigfoot or UFO themed merchandise? Look no further. Explore Night Dreams Talk Radio's store for an array of paranormal goodies, from t-shirts to mouse pads to socks to whatever the heck that thing is. Don't miss out on these unique items. Check us out today at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. While you're checking out the cool merchandise, go to the latest news tab to find out what's going on in the world and outside the world. Again, go to www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Take a journey of adventure and discovery for the enigmatic giants of the forests. Read On the Trail of Bigfoot by Mike Dupler. The author himself describes it this way. Having found possible Sasquatch evidence, namely trees driven into the ground upside down, thought to be territory markers, led me to investigate this creature in my native Ohio. Several years and many forays into Bigfoot territory, I have found incredible evidence, which inspired my book, On the Trail of Bigfoot. Bigfoot is alive and has many fantastic abilities. The evidence is out there for all to see, but you need to know what to look for. My book will inspire those who have answered the call to seek this elusive creature, the Bigfoot. The truth is out there. Read On the Trail of Bigfoot by Mike Dupler. Available now at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and IndieBound.org. Deep in the Amazon jungle, one man.
Hi, I'm Stan Gordon. Check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, let me finish. One man.
Hi, I'm Mark Muncy. Check out Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, do you mind? One man, naked and afraid.
I'm losing my mind.
You and me both, sister. One man, Gary the Big Guy. No boats, no lights, no motor cars, not a single luxury.
Hey, any more and you'll have to pay a royalty.
Okay, that's it.
Hit it.
From the summer vacation studios deep in the Amazon jungle, from that tree right there. See at the top, he's swinging.
I'm losing my mind.
Twice?
All right. Coming to you live, for now, on Night Dreams Talk Radio, naked and afraid, Gary the Big Guy Anderson.
And we are back. You know, JC, I just now realized he said alive for now. I wonder what he meant by that.
Well, apparently, may not be alive for very long. Jeez.
Well, I guess if you're naked and swinging the trees in the Amazon, you know, besides falling, there's a lot of snakes there.
There's a lot of snakes and a lot of things that different things can get.
If you fell down, you could have a branch go where it doesn't want to go.
That's right. And these are all bad scenarios, especially for being, well, afraid and naked.
Now, no, I was naked and afraid.
Oh, okay. Both at the same time.
Yeah. Well, Douglas, we are back. But, you know, we talked about, you know, these young girls, you know, in Mexico, they found a place there too. It was a beautiful, like a little pond and everything, you know, next to a cave. And then they found out that was a place where they sacrificed a lot of people because they found, you know, literally hundreds of skeletons in it.
Yeah, there are very large aggregations of sacrificial victims that have been found in Mexico and Central America. That was a very important, human sacrifice was a very important part of their religion. But you mentioned snakes. I got a snake story for you.
Oh, let's hear it. It got to be better than the one in that Florida restaurant. Go ahead.
Well, I wrote this book called The Lost City of the Monkey God, and I was on an expedition to Honduras where we were exploring a lost city, a gigantic lost city, completely unknown, that was discovered using LIDAR, which is that new technique which you fly a LIDAR machine on an airplane, you fly over the jungle, and it can actually map the ground under the thickest jungle canopy. So they discovered a huge unknown city in Honduras in the heart of the rainforest in an area that had never been explored. So I was part of that expedition there. And the first night, you know, we landed in helicopters. We dropped some guys. They cleared a landing zone. We landed and we went into the jungle. We hacked our way in and set up our hammocks. And that night, I was walking past my buddy's hammock at night, and there was a gigantic snake coiled up. I mean, huge, coiled up in striking position and very aroused. And there were only 8 of us at the time. The main part of the expedition hadn't arrived. So we had 3 British ex-SAS officers who were guiding the expedition. And I called out and I said, "Hey, you guys, there's a big snake over here." So the big the head of the expedition came over, a guy named Woody, and he said, "Oh, blimey, that's a fer-de-lance, which is the most poisonous snake in the New World." He said, "I'm going to move it." And I thought, that's insane. He's going to move that snake? That's crazy. Well, he cut himself a long snake stick, about 8 feet long, with a fork at the end. And we all had our flashlights on this snake. It was frozen in the light. And he pinned it. And the snake went crazy, just striking in the air and with venom flying, streaming from its fangs. And it was striking every which way. And he worked the snake stick up behind the snake's head. He grabbed it, and the snake was turning its head around, trying to sink its fangs into the back of his hand, and expelled venom all over the back of his hand. And you could see that his skin was starting to bubble. And the snake was huge. The snake was as long, actually longer than he was, whipping around. So he fell to the ground with his snake, pinned it with his knees, and cut off the head with his machete. But the snake continued to fight. The head continued to snap and spew venom, and the body of the snake continued to fight him. It was like something out of a Stephen King novel. And so he took not his machete, but another knife, and stabbed the head into the ground to stop it from flipping around, spewing venom. And the body of the snake calmed down, and then he stood up, and he had this venom all over his hands. He said, washed his hands off, and he said, "Nothing like that to concentrate the mind, is there?"
Well, can I ask you a question? Were you scared to walk around after that?
Oh my God, I got to tell you. He said, "Look," he said, "where there's one, there are more." And he said, "This snake kills more people in the New World than any other snake. It's 600 times more venomous than a rattlesnake. If you're bitten by this snake, if you don't die immediately of a brain hemorrhage, your life will change forever."
Yeah, like a slow death. I got a real quick 3-minute story for you, and then we'll get back into it. Back about 2 years ago, we were doing a news thing about a guy who went into a very upper class restaurant in Florida. And halfway through his meal, he decided he had to go read a book in the library. So he went into the restroom to read his book, if you know what I mean. And he's sitting there for a minute. All of a sudden, he felt something grab his manhood. So the guy started screaming. So, people started running into the bathroom. There he was. A huge snake came up through the sewer, up into the toilet, and grabbed a hold of him. The paramedics and the police got there, and then they actually had to break the toilet, and then it was still attached.
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine? I'm never going to read a book in a restaurant or any place.
God, what, Gary? Now, what are you doing telling me a story like that? Now I'm never going to be able to unhear that story. Oh, my God.
Yeah, well, my producer brings it up quite often. I tell you, a lot of times I just don't want to go read a book in the library anymore.
Yeah, just don't spend a lot of time there. I mean, I hear that in New York City, there are all kinds of animals living in the sewer. People flush, alligators and fish and snakes and all kinds of things down the toilet when they're done with them as pets. They flush them down the toilet and they grow. I mean, New York City has these giant sewers, and these animals just live down there, and they grow, and there's a lot to eat down there too.
Yeah, like people living in those places too.
Yeah. I actually wrote a novel about that. Well, Relic was about that, and Reliquary, a little bit about those underground. There were literally people called the Mole People who live underground in New York City, and they hardly ever see the light.
I know. Isn't that interesting how they do it? And not this there, even in Nevada, in Reno, or Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, there's people living in their storm drain system and live there their whole entire life. That is scary. Can you imagine living in there and instead of having a pet dog, you got a pet rat as big as a German Shepherd?
I lived in New York City, and you see rats in the subway. that will absolutely curl your hair. They are like dogs. They're as big as dogs.
Yeah.
They're fat, happy, sleek, man, and they're unafraid.
Oh, yeah. Now, getting back, it's my fault. I deviate off of this. The Maya civilization was from Mexico to, the Amazon to Peru, everywhere. But again, something else caused their destruction of their culture besides, of overgrowing and stuff like that? Something must have happened, because it's, if not just in one area, it was, a huge area of what they have built, all these major cities with thousands of people, and they all seemed like a disappear. There's still, traces of them, but the civilization as what they were, so advanced. I mean, if you really think about it, mathematically, we might not have a zero on our calculator if it wasn't for them.
Well, Gary, I think you're right about that. The explanations that we get about that don't really seem satisfying. Okay, they wrecked their environment or a little bit, or they had a social structure that kind of was burdensome or fell apart. But you just brought up something really important. There were all these cities. They were huge cities. They were sophisticated, beautiful cities. Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, all abandoned kind of at the same time. Where did they go? Well, we don't really know where they went. But that doesn't, the idea that somehow that it was, environmental degradation doesn't really explain the size of it and the scope of it.
It doesn't.
And so I really think there was something else, something that we don't know yet.
Well, maybe we do know, but they won't make it ever public, too. If you really think about it, again, they had so many cities. Like I mentioned, the one they found a year ago in the Amazon, huge, which would have held thousands of people. Again, how, just like if you look at the Sphinx and the Great Pyramids, how did they have the technology to come up with that? The same way with the Mayas. How could they have built these beautiful temples and these pyramids and all this stuff, and their culture disappears? How did they have that technology when we can't even do it?
Yeah, I know. How did they? Why did they just walk away? I mean, you'd think that, okay, some people would have remained there, but these cities were so thoroughly abandoned that they were completely overgrown. Nobody lived there. That's a really good question. And there are mysteries out there. I mean, there are mysteries out there that we have only begun to grasp, or maybe even we haven't even come to terms with.
Well, just last week they announced they found, I can't remember now when, because I'm at that age where if I lose my car keys every day now. But, they found, again, relics from a civilization 16,000 years ago. And then just before that, they found one somewhere else in this planet of 20,000 years where man was walking around. It makes you wonder, has this planet been rebooted? Did something happen? Again, not just that, if you think about what happened with the pyramids, what happened to that civilization? That wasn't the same civilization as the pharaohs. The pharaohs took them over to do their own thing, but somebody built it, like the Great Sphinx before them. Again, like with the Mayas, I mean, look what they accomplished. They had religion. They had everything from stargazing to calendars to math. They had all this stuff. They were really far advanced. And why would you, if they could do all that, even if it was the point that they killed off the soil where they couldn't grow enough food, that many people just disappearing? That don't make sense. And why would they leave all their temples, all the things that they created? I'm just wondering if something happened in this world that we're not told about.
I mean, leaving all their jade artifacts and gold and everything else that have been found. people generally, when they leave, take their stuff with them, but they didn't take their stuff with them. So, you're raising a really deep point. We live in a galaxy that has 1 trillion stars in it, probably, or hundreds of billions of stars, many with planets. There's something like maybe 8 to 10 billion planets in the habitable zones orbiting suns in our galaxy that may host intelligent life or civilizations. It's impossible to do the math and not conclude that there are other civilizations in our galaxy and that probably they know we exist and probably have visited us and are visiting us or are aware of us. It's the Fermi paradox. Where are they? Well, who knows what might have occurred in the past that we don't have access to in terms of the written record. What might have happened to the Maya?
Well, again, at one point, was it 2011 or whatever? Basically, our civilization, according to their calendar, which they're the ones that actually came out with the calendar, Earth should have had some major changes, like maybe we wouldn't been here.
Well, that's interesting. The Maya calendar is a fascinating thing. I mean, I guess we survived the apocalypse of 2011, but why are they even thinking about? Why did they even talk about the apocalypse? I mean, there are all kinds of mysteries about the Maya and their understanding of the world and their place in the world that we don't understand at all. And the descendants of the Maya who live, in that region, have lost all that knowledge has been lost. And
that proves a point. If there was ever a Holocaust, it wouldn't take very long. We'd be pretty much back to, Stone Age. I think we got a caller. Let's take the caller and see who do we have?
This is Tom.
Hi, Tom. You got a question for our guest?
Yes, sir, I do. Billy Carson, Graham Hancock, and others have proffered the idea that the civilization known as Atlantis had outposts and were directly responsible for building the pyramids and basically starting various civilizations, the Mayans included, the Egyptians, etc., and giving them the technologies that they had for advanced work of astrology, astronomy, etc. But they also proffer the idea that the blood sacrifices were something that came in after a very positive force left the Mayans and basically subverted what was a highly spiritual religion. And I just wanted your take on that.
Well, it's a very interesting idea, especially the latter one that you said, where, how to explain the brutality of human sacrifice. And of course, the technologies that ancient civilizations developed are sometimes so astonishing and so hard to believe that they could have done that. I mean, for example, the beautiful structures in Machu Picchu, where the stones were so perfectly fitted together, you can't even slip a piece of paper between those stones, how beautifully fitted they are. The size of the pyramids, the technology of building the Mayan road system, for example. I mean, the Mayan pyramids are pretty impressive, but when you look at the road system, that's been more impressive. So, so the question is, and so much of this technology seems to be similar in different parts of the world. Was there a radiative force like at Atlantis, you said, or some, for some knowledge of technology that then spread outward from a single source? Very interesting questions.
Well, thanks, Tom, for that question. It just puzzles me. That's just me. I don't buy that, they basically were starving to death, so they just walked away from their cities. Because if it was just one or two cities, but it was a whole bunch of cities, and I'm willing to bet you the next few years they're going to find more cities from the Mayas. And again, why would they leave all desert all over different areas? We're talking not next door. We're talking long ways. And a lot of people talk about the Roman roads that it went for thousands of miles, and then even in the UK. But look, the Mayas had roads like that too, even probably longer.
And you're absolutely right, Gary. That really is not ever been explained. I mean, the Romans, of course, Roman civilization fell. They had their roads, they had their temples that were abandoned, and all the rest of it. But the Romans didn't go anywhere. They were still there, and they became the Italians and so forth. And they didn't walk away and abandon everything to the jungle or to the wilderness. But that's what the Mayans did. They walked away and abandoned these enormously rich cities and jungles and areas and completely abandoned them. Nobody lived there anymore. And that is really hard to explain.
And they wouldn't have been able to adapt to go into the jungles and survive.
No, and these are rich areas. There's a lot of food in the jungle. There's a lot of game. They had fields that they'd cleared, planted fields. And I mean, if there was environmental degradation, you might believe that there was a reduction in the population. But why would people just walk away? Everybody. It doesn't make sense.
Oh,
There's definitely a mystery there, Gary, that you put your finger on that has not been solved.
And again, I would like to know how they have the technology to build these temples and these pyramids. Why is it, if you look at all the pyramids on the world wide, why are they so similar? They didn't have the internet. They didn't have, a mail to send out, well, here's the schematic to build a pyramid. Something is weird here, and we just can't put our fingers to it. Like I said, I'm willing to bet you there's people out there that really know what has been happening to this earth.
Well, there's a lot of closed thinking among archaeologists that they don't want to consider hypotheses that are a little bit out there. But when you look at the way human beings spread over the globe so quickly, and I mean, they got in canoes and rowed across 8,000 miles of the Pacific Ocean. That's pretty amazing to think of. I think a lot of archaeologists don't give credit to the what really happened in the past. And they're seeking explanations that are somewhat prosaic.
I'm willing to bet.
A lot more involved.
I'm willing to bet you they could have had technology so much more farther advanced than we could even comprehend. Because again, after all these years, okay, certain things are naturally, their temples, their buildings are going to stay. But the other type of stuff, just like our civilization, if it collapsed tomorrow, other than maybe some beer cans and some milk cartons, the plastic ones, but they'll degenerate after a certain amount of time. Everything that we have technology-wise, cars and TVs and all that stuff, give it 1,000 years and it's all gone. It'll all be gone. And people will sit there and wonder about our civilization. I like to get you back on and talk about Relic and some of your other books, if that is possible in the future. If it's anything you want to share, because our time is almost up, if you have a website or your latest book, where they can find it, please share it.
Well, Douglas Preston, you can Google, you can find my books everywhere. I've got a Preston and Child. I write with my writing partner. You can go to our website. We have a Facebook page as well. But, Gary, I'd love to be on your show again. This is one of the most interesting shows going. And you ask a lot of good questions, and you know so much. It's always a pleasure being on your show.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and I want you to have a good weekend that's coming up. And again, I'll have my producer get a hold of you in the next day or two, and we'll set up another day to come on.
Well, thank you. I'm going to take my boat out on Saturday and spend the night on the water, and so I'm looking forward to that.
What I like is sleeping on the boat at night. It's so relaxing. Anyway, my friend, you take care, and I really enjoyed having you on.
Well, thank you, Gary. It's always a pleasure. You're an excellent host.
Okay, my friend, you take care. Well, JC, we're off tomorrow, but we're going to be back on Friday. I got to go have some medical tests tomorrow, but we'll be back Friday. And who do we have on, and what are we going to be talking about?
We have Joe Stillwell on, and we're going to be talking about his ET encounters and some abduction scenarios that he may have been through. And it's going to be good. Let me tell you. And listen, that's not all. Ron Fitzgerald's coming back on right after him to talk about some updates, what's going on with him
some
and his
scary stuff, because Halloween's coming up here, down the road, but not that far.
That's right. That's right. Ron's always got that, what's he call, sticky, spooky stuff, vampire stuff.
Yeah, he's been in movies, TV shows, and he's the one that I'm trying to get you in his coffin to set it on fire.
I know you are. His movies were on Amazon. I don't know if they still are or not.
Yeah, they are. I was watching one the other night.
Yeah.
I was there with my diet popcorn and my Fresca.
You and your friend. Yeah. No, the contract's not in my my contract doesn't, mention anything about coffins and things. So.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I was going to send you another check that the ink disappears on it anyway. But, again, I want to thank everybody. We're almost at 146,000 subscribers. If you want to help us make the show keep growing, please buy us a cup of tea, cup of coffee. You become a mega member. It's very important because, as the show grows, we have enormous costs to put the show on. I'm also working a deal with a network back and forth. We're just tossing the idea to be on 30 radio stations. And if that happens, I'm so excited. If it don't happen, I'm still excited because I really enjoy having all you out there as a listener. But again, if you can't afford to support the show, hey, tell your friends about the show because I don't know what's going on, JC, but we are growing. We grew 37,000 and some change of new subscribers in just 1 month alone.
That's more than some shows have ever total.
There's some shows I can think of that have been on 8-9 years that don't have that good.
Or longer.
But, that's just on YouTube. The internet side, we're back up to over 1.5 million downloads. And again, hey, I'm just a normal guy who's retired that loves doing talk radio. And, again, I'm not going to keep saying this. I won't say it again for a long time. But it does cost a lot of money to put the show on. People don't realize you can't go on the air. You can't promote it. You can't, you got to pay for some of the apps. You got to pay for your streaming services. You got to pay for this. You got to pay for high-speed internet, business. You got all the stuff you have to pay. And, hey, I would like to break even once in a while.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, maybe one of these days you will, hopefully.
So Friday is going to be good. Who's our guest next week? Real quick. You got like 60 seconds.
We got Rudy Lee coming back on next Wednesday, then followed by on Thursday, Mr. Tim Schwartz, and then
Time Travel with Tim Schwartz.
Yeah. And then that Friday, we got Major Ed Dames coming back, followed by Keith Thompson with the UFO Paradox.
And don't forget, the 11th of October, who do we have?
We have Mr. Lou Elizondo coming on.
And we're working on getting a lot more of the people. So stay tuned and tell your friends about us. We will catch you on the other side. I want to again remind you we're not on tomorrow, but we'll be back on Friday. And I'd love to have you on chat and give us a call. Don't be afraid. We don't bite. We'll catch you on the other side. So everybody have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Friday. Okay, I almost lost my brain there.
All the night dreamers talking to you at night. Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not inside. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's Talk Show Radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show.